to another team that's been wanting to get into contention, kind of sold their soul for it a couple off seasons ago, and that is the Cleveland Browns. They went 7-10 last year. Obviously missed Deshaun Watson for most of the year, so you could say that's a reason. But they did have some departures. Lost quarterback Jacoby Brissett, who had filled in while Watson was serving his suspension. Also lost running back Kareem Hunt, who was very good as their 1-2 punch running back combo. Lost a couple of defensive linemen in Jadeveon Clowney and Chase Winovich, and then also lost safety John Johnson as well. They did add defensive lineman Dalvin Tomlinson and safety Juan Thornhill and Rodney. I always mess this up. McLeod. Sorry, Rodney, if you messed that up. And then also, thank you for adding this, John. They also did grab defensive end Zadarius Smith. Sorry, Zadarius, that I missed you. It's not because I'm a Packer fan or salty or anything. I don't know. It just didn't pop up. I blame Spotrac.com. And nonetheless, obviously, like I mentioned, and no notable draftees. Sorry to those draftees, but once again, they traded most of their picks. So it was like, I think, 4th, 5th round when their first pick was or something. Nonetheless, Browns expected to take that leap this year. They did also trade for your wide receiver you liked, Elijah Moore, from the Jets this offseason. So a lot of pressure on Watson in the offense to produce, and just the Browns in general. John, how do you feel about the Browns, and what do you think they'll do this year?
Well, for the Cleveland Browns, I mean, the big storyline is just going to be Deshaun Watson. You know, he finally came back last season after the suspension and all of these things, and he was playing. Wasn't the greatest of starts, but, you know, he was a little bit rusty. It happens. And I think people will give him the benefit of the doubt for that, right? But now, full off season with the team and actually being able to like be out there and practice and everything, and full preseason, full training camp, everything. Now the question is, can Deshaun Watson return to his previous top 5 form? Like because that's what he was. The last time we fully saw him play a season in Houston, he was a top 5 quarterback. They only won 4 games, but he was performing like a top 5 quarterback. So that's the big question mark on the rest of the offense. I mean, I don't know what more you could really want. You got Nick Chubb still. They have Jerome Ford, who you were very high on, and clearly they liked him or Demetric Felton enough to be comfortable letting not only Kareem Hunt, what was the other running back's name who went to Jacksonville now? He was like a fantasy stud because every he'd have like a 3-game stretch every year. Oh, this is gonna bother me. I gotta look it up. Hold on, give me one sec.
Go ahead.
Dearness Johnson. Like, you know, he would fill in sometimes and he'd look pretty good. And so they let not only Kareem Hunt but also him leave. And so I think that shows they have some confidence in the young running backs behind Chubb. So you have a good running back room. You have Amari Cooper. You had Elijah Moore. Like you said, I was very high on him. You also have some other young receivers like, you know, David Bell, Jalen Darden, some of these other guys, Cedric Tillman, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Like, they have a decent receiver room. It's definitely not the best, but there's potential for them to certainly be even better. And then the offensive line, we already know, is super strong. Wyatt Teller, Joel Bitonio, Jedrick Wills. It's just, you know, can they stay healthy? Because the offensive line has had some injuries over the last couple of years. So offensively, yeah, like I said, it's just, can Deshaun Watson return to his previous form? Because if he does, this team is going to be a potentially really scary one. And then on defense, they kind of have the same stuff going on that they've had for a while. Like, you got Myles Garrett, not the strongest of interior defensive lines. They did add a couple names, like you said, Dalvin Tomlinson. If he's healthy, Tristan Hill was like all right for Dallas. So they have some names there. They also drafted Siaki Ika, my guy from Baylor, which I don't expect him to immediately be an impact performer, but he was a stud at Baylor. He's a massive man. He's like 6'5", 6'6", 360 pounds. Like, he's huge. He is a people mover. So he could be a force potentially in the run game, at least on some of the early downs or something like that. But I expect him to be more of a project guy, kind of rotational piece. Maybe next year he really starts getting more playing time. And then, you know, you get Darius Smith opposite of Myles Garrett. Who knows how productive Zadarius will be at this point in his career. Obviously, he's still solid. But I don't know how big of an upgrade that is from Jadeveon Clowney. I don't know. And then the rest of the defense, there's just a lot of young guys. We got to see how they perform. Grant Delpit, Greg Newsome, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, just a lot of young talent that, like, similar to the Ravens, which I would say these guys are a little bit more proven and a little bit more high caliber, options considering where they were drafted. But just got to see how they perform to see if this defense can, take a larger step. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like the Browns, like, a ton has really changed in terms of, like, the storyline and the question for this team. But I certainly think they're a very interesting team because when you start trying to, like, pick the AFC playoff picture, things just it gets so tough. And the Browns are one of those teams that, like, I think everybody's really confident in the Bengals, but then, like, we could see any of the other three teams potentially making the playoffs, and you never know. It's really hard to judge this division.
Yeah, and I want to say, I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up last year's schedule, but I want to say the Bengals have struggled against the Browns too when they've played them. Like, I remember, I'm trying to remember that.
Yeah, I think I think hasn't Joe Burrow never beat them?
It would not shock
I
me.
could be wrong on that, but I think that was, like, the one team that he had never beat. Oh no, he beat them last year.
He did. Yeah, but it was in December. Yes, in December. They did lose earlier in the year in October, 32-13.
So maybe that was the first time that he beat him.
Yeah, the December game.
Yeah.
I'm assuming so, but because they got smoked the other time, and that was with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. So, Burrow. 2 touchdowns, interception, but nonetheless, my concerns. I don't have much concerns about the offense. I'm kind of buying. I'm really excited to see if I feel like Donovan Peoples-Jones has been a really solid outside guy for them. Now that they've solidified quarterback, an actual offseason, those two working together, along with Amari Cooper, of course. I'm interested to see if that tandem, including Elijah Moore, that could be a very scary trio. But obviously, we have to see it come to fruition. I'd be interested defensively for the Browns. You mentioned your guy, and then also they brought in Dalvin Tomlinson. Size was a concern for me last year for the Browns as the year went on, because against some of the bigger teams, especially teams that wanted to run the ball and be physical, the Browns were more of a speed finesse team. And obviously outside of Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett's a freak, but that's one guy out of 4 or 5 that are in the box that are kind of winning their matchup. And so I'm interested to see if Cleveland is kind of grabbing those guys for, like you mentioned, early down stuff, just ways to negate that. Also, I'm looking at my guy Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, because linebacker has been iffy for them. They did trade for Deion Jones last year, I think around the trade deadline. He walked. He was technically another loss for them. But obviously I'm assuming they're still running that Seattle-ish scheme, so that middle linebacker is going to be very important. But I do like their secondary. Delpit was a nice little surprise when he did play in moments, so hopefully he can continue to grow. And we know Denzel Ward's pretty good. So, just for me, just the size, can defend the run, the Browns, and on offense, really just continuity, especially with Watson. But, I'm with you. This is one of those teams that is like a thorn in the side, and it's going to be annoying because you're not sure if to leave them in, count them out. I'll definitely have to, like I said, I'll definitely have to look at schedules this year, at least for the AFC, because, like, first month or so, is what I really like to factor in. It's interesting to see what they open up with, but and I'm saying this as a division as a whole. This division is going to be tough to kind of sort out. I know we feel like I think the Bengals kind of seem like the only somewhat surety to be in the playoffs, but I got these 3 other teams, and we just talked about the AFC East last week, and we talked about how any of those teams we could see any of those teams realistically making it in. Like, I could kind of see that with the AFC North here. I don't have as much confidence in that as like the AFC East, but like we said, Baltimore should be a better year for them, and then you never know with Pittsburgh and the Browns. Like we said, they have enough talent where they should be in that picture. It's just a matter of putting it all together.